to iAMradio. I noticed I have these sort of like biblical lights in the back, and I pivoted around a little. They're still there, so I'm gonna keep them for effect. I'm feeling inspired to, hey guys, hi, to talk about things I usually don't on my main channel. So I do have several Instagram accounts. I share this level of my experience on Intergalactic Hotline if you want to follow me there. Hey Ray. I don't really talk about it on the mainstream, but here we are because this is what's here for me to say. And ironically, I have on my goal-oriented shirt. It's a supernormalswag.com original. That's my swag shop. It's not open right now, but it will be, and then you can get your own. Okay, so what did I want to talk about today? This would essentially be wisdom, and to me that is allowing and acceptance and surrender. And I'm going to talk about that in the context of what we don't know and what we kind of know but don't want to know. So from my vantage point, and I'm not really sure where you're coming from as far as like familiarity with my work, and it's a cheesy thing to say, but I don't want to be redundant. I really want to be respectful of your time. So just kind of simply, I talk a lot about the limits of the mind and the illusion of understanding and the illusion of separation, which basically says like, here I am and here's everything else, like here's life and other people and here, when really it's all just one. So I talk about oneness after having peeled off all the layers of thought of like how we're not that. And from what my vantage point, I'm just going to say from where I see it, life, consciousness is this ball, its own organism. And sometimes I talk about that using the illustration of a body. Let me get you a body. Oh, I have one from my last presentation. So here's a body. And let's say that within the body there is a lung, and within the lung there is, I think, like little things on the wall of the lungs that sort out the oxygen, and then within that there are cells, and within that there are organelles within the cell, and within that there are molecules, like, you know, there are systems and systems and systems and systems, and each system in and of itself is complete, except for that it wouldn't exist without the rest of the system. So it's kind of like, here's this cell, it functions on its own, like, look at it, it's a cell, it's its own thing. But if it didn't exist in the body, it wouldn't exist at all. And similarly, the body is dependent on those individual components. If there wasn't that individual cell, there'd be no body. So from what I can tell, humanity and all that is, so my marker, your dog, your boss, my ring, bricks, dirt, plastic, like all of it constitutes the singular body. And we'll call it isness. Isness, just like the body, kind of grows. And it seems like isness happens at these points of consciousness, these individual cells, me, you, here. And one of the bigger challenges that I had to work through and letting go of, it's like you have all this fear, and you have the fear because you're holding on to something. When you look at what you're holding on to, I'm sorry to say, like, it's usually an illusion. It's pretty much an illusion. Even if it is something very tangible, like a person or a relationship or a job, it's your relationship to it, the meaning that you have invested in it, what you think it is and gives you, that is illusory. And so you're holding like this to these different ideas, these different things, as if they are responsible for how you feel. But they don't make you feel any type of way. Your relationship to them does. And so I can't speak for the world, and I could barely speak for like this little bucket of Western culture, but just if you look at like how much, like what's in TV, what's in movies, whatever, I would assume that there is like some common threads of thought. Like that's called conditioning, where it's basically like you're exposed to an idea and you come to think that's the way that things are. And so our chunk, like my age bracket, and give or take 10 years on either end, we were kind of taught this idea of what life would look like. And, you know, the people before us were taught idea, and so there's kind of like this idea of how we're supposed to function as individuals and how life is supposed to look and unfold and what a relationship is and what it is to be productive and how you're supposed to, like, all of these ideas are embedded in your subconscious and generally create like constant pressure. Are you there? Are you doing it right? Are you on track? Are you moving? Like, where are you relative to where you're supposed to be, where they are? Like, are you using your life correctly? Are you, like, all of these things create this inner experience of tension and turmoil. And I think that's what we're seeing with mental health, which ironically is creating more pressure around like how you're supposed to have an experience of yourself. I've personally had to transcend a lot of inner turmoil and tension, and the way to do it, like, you might want to write this down, is to accept it. You try to fight that shit, it gets bigger, badder, stronger. When you notice you're in a brainstorm, take a second and just appreciate yourself and breathe there. Don't think it's bad or wrong. Don't try to go anywhere with it. And going back to this idea of the single organism of life, it's like energy is kind of like pushing through your system, and your body's like, what do I do with this? At least that's my interpretation of it. And so right now, like, I've been blessed to be on Instagram. Sorry, I'm trying to do something with this. Talking about this stuff for almost 5 years now, or more than 5 years now. And I've connected with people all over who life is pushed out similarly through. So all of us are kind of decoding, embodying, whatever, digesting these waves of information that reconcile our minds from what we've been conditioned to think things are to what they are, which is fucking understandable, and just like it's not what you think. So it's almost like you have this life. It's a little plant. You have the plant, and then you have a paper that you picked up somewhere, and you're like, oh, this must go for the plant. And so you check the plant against the paper, and you're like, oh God, it looks like it's going the wrong way. How do I fix this? And then you try to like control the plant. You're like, according to this paper, this plant should have this leaf. It doesn't have this leaf. This plant is wrong. And you create all this mental, emotional tension. What I'm trying to say is that at this point in our evolution, iAMHO, there ain't shit on paper for anybody to be able to understand what the fuck is happening at an individual level. So we're kind of like, if you think that you're wrong or bad or like missing out on something because you're not according to the paper, I would urge you to consider, like, is there any paper that could have ever possibly anticipated or predicted this plant that's never existed before in this environment that never was? It's like this overall body is doing something, and we're ride-alongs. We're not steering. The only thing that you get to steer as a participant in the body is your individual cell, and that looks like not where does the cell go or who is the cell or what can the cell do, as much as like, does the cell appreciate and see itself? Does the cell nurture itself as it is? Does the cell is the cell in harmony with itself, which then allows for it to be in harmony with everything else. And there are like a bunch of different conversations right now explaining what's happening. And when we're looking at, the expansion of consciousness, the expansion of awareness, to me, it's a few different things. A couple months ago, I did the God Forum and for fun. And I talked about how part of what's happening in like this expansion of consciousness is the body coming to recognize itself as itself, where the hand is like, it's like doing this. And it's like, oh shit, we're the same. Like when you hurt when you hurt the other pieces of the body, you ultimately hurt the body, which then hurts the self. So just the interconnectedness of our experience and how we are the same. And I'm bringing this out because there can be so much, like I work with unlocking people, and a lot of people who are sensitive to this expansion and sort of on the wave, like the crest of it, are trying to not. They're trying to be or go do something else because they don't have a template to understand what's happening to them or for them. For the last 5 years, it took me, I had, as part of the thinking that I was peeling off, I had some like, I gotta be special complexes. I gotta work the hardest complexes. I gotta, like, nobody helps me, life is hard complexes. So I really wasn't interacting with the information in a way that's like, okay, like, this is okay, I'm okay. It was more like, questy, like, watch me on my quest. And like, God bless me, that was the best I could do. But as part of that, I had so much resistance to the experience that I was having because I thought I should be doing something else, where it's like, Shaylee, you have these skills. Why aren't you there? Why aren't you doing that? Well, fuck, because like this consciousness was pushing itself into my physical body in a way that I could process it, intellectualize it, and actually experience it. It's not like when I'm talking on these or I'm producing content, I'm not summarizing books I've read. I'm summarizing shit I pause that. And it's not to say I didn't read books, not to say I don't consult experts. I work with people. We're all kind of contributing to creating a framework to see a pattern in a way that we can accept it. You still can't understand it, but you can come to see it. So I talk a lot too about how the only thing that's true is silence. As soon as you put something in words, language is a human construct. It's part of the body because it's of the body, because the mind is of the body, because it's of the thing that's being contemplated. You can't contemplate it. To quote Alan Watts, you can't bite your own teeth. So all the cute things we do as humans to think we know what the fuck is going on are just exercises in either control or desire, and sometimes they're both. So one of the other things I found is like, this experience is very like quantum. So you have like, here's a card. It's got two sides, a single card. On this side is Shaylee being deeply invested in spiritual growth and having a sensitivity and an inclination to explore things that are non-physical. On this side is Shaylee having a very traumatic experience as a child, and then trauma stacked on trauma. It's the same fucking card. If not this, then none of this. So it's like all of our experience is kind of do I use art to escape life, or do I do it because I love it? Well, it's like likely both. And at any given time, the card side that you see is kind of like your intention. Are you present? If you're present and you're making the choice and you are aware of who you are, you have access to anything. There's no reason to do anything except for that you want to, except that there's love. So if you're not conscious to make the choice, you might be defaulting to it. And none of it is bad or wrong. It's just to say that it's like it can be a different experience. can't see your quote. Off topic, but I can't help see Julianne Emery when I see you, especially they were based in NOLA. Thank you. I don't know who that is, but I'm gonna say thanks. So if you guys are just joining, what I'm talking about is how, like, cute as we may try, we have no template to understand what's happening to us as individuals in this growing experience, or this growing consciousness experience. And it's pushing life into things where it doesn't really fit. So a lot of relationship templates are getting stretched and changed. Is this what it's supposed to look like to be in a relationship? Is this what it's supposed to look like to be a functional, productive human? Like, all of these templates that we had, that the pieces of paper that came alongside but not with the plant, are like, it's like, that's not doing this. That's not happening. I mentioned that I've been blessed to be connected with people all over the world who are doing work similar to me and are attuned to this process. And it's, it's just so cool to hear how it's kind of like we're all sitting around the same thing and we see it, but we sit in different places. And so what we think to say, what we experience, what's there for us is different, but it's recognizable that it's all the same. And one of the things that shows up a lot in that community is the challenge that this presents physically. So if you have this idea of how productive you should be, or how energetic you should be, or how you should be applying yourself, that doesn't include whatever it might take for your nervous system or your brain or your cells or whatever to iterate or upgrade or whatever to be able to hold this higher level of awareness, higher consciousness, highest frequency in your body, there's a lot of tension. It's like, what's wrong with me? Well, what's wrong with you is that, like, the physical structure needs to adapt to what is. So you gotta lay down more. I've spent most of the last, not most, I don't know if I can still say that. I spent a lot of time in the last 5 years in silence and stillness, just kind of like feeling. And it's been, again, looking at this two sides thing. On one side, it's like, hey, Shaylee, remember all those times you broke your heart? Do you think maybe you were depressed? And on the other side, it was like, hey, wow, like, I've developed a connection to my intuition and my experience where my info source is in here. I don't give a shit what anybody else says. I can hear them. I can take in the information. I'm open to it. It's not like a wall, but I'm very connected to what feels true and right for me. I don't think I would have been able to develop that sensitivity had I not spent that time by myself, connecting to my body, connecting to how I feel. And so when I'm working with people too, it might just be the type of people I attract. I call this like these are your X-Men skills. So kind of been through stress, strain, trauma of life, you mutated, and now you have cool things that you can do if you allow the frame within which you see yourself to evolve or expand to include, like, hey, maybe this is right. So if you're in self-rejection, if you're looking at the side of the coin that says, like, this is the stuff that's wrong and this is how I've been hurt, then you might not flip it over and say, like, oh, cool, look at this ability I have to read people. Look at this ability or sensitivity I have to being able to see what is real or what is healthy, or like there's another side to it. And if you generally have to put down your pain and your fear and stuff to use this side constructively. Otherwise you'd be using it for your personal gain because you'd still think that there's a you. And operationalizing, which is a cheesy word, so like in making this practical, this idea of oneness, there is, like, not that you don't matter. We all matter. Every cell's important. But you're not the main point. Life is the main point. Life is happening through you. You are a participant in it, and you are never not. Whether your physical body is present or it's gone. Life kind of like, it's just that wave or drop, ocean, wave thing. It all is just, it's continuous. I posted the other day my recipe for miracles, and I think the second practice was you can't die, or you were never born, so you can't die. And that's recognizing that you are a part of this at all times, always, forever, and like you're never not here. And that, talking to the layers that I had to peel off myself, was a big one. I use human design and gene keys for myself a lot. I use it a lot with clients. It's an incredible tool to see and validate your individuality, what's unique about you, those elements of your plant that don't match what's on the paper. For example, the way that I work with information is I cannot think strategically. I cannot. And I tried. I really tried. I had a boyfriend once who was like the boss at that. And I was like, I should be able to do that. I'm smart. And I tried really hard to wrestle myself into that kind of framework and that structure. And I got really sick. I don't function like that. So human design and gene keys can help you see where there might be a component of you that's natural. That's how your plant, your wisdom, your uniqueness works, that you've been rejecting because you don't either have a framework for it or you have a framework that doesn't match. So where was I going with that? The human design and the gene keys? I took off running with it, and I'm sorry, I forget where I was going. It'll come to me. Oh, I was saying with human design and gene keys, what I was able to connect with in that is the fear that I have, the pressure that I had put on myself, like I'm blessed now to be on the other side of it, but the pressure that I felt to like get my life right, to like complete my dreams was so much. I wasn't really able to act towards them. I'd have like flashes of it, but because the expectation that I had of myself, because the target was so large, because of all of these like fantastical illusions, it was really challenging for me to see what it was in real life that I was tending to. When you have illusion or fantasy, it's not what's here, but what's here is, thanks, Ro. What's here is what goes there. And so we'll have the fantasy of the relationship, the job, the money, and think that it comes from some like a guy with a little cart comes by and he drops it off. Or a guy with a unicorn in a cart comes by and he drops it off. But the seeds are now. It's now. And it takes a bit, or it did for me, to digest that, like, this is it. And I found that for myself and for other people who had challenging starts to life, it's hard to be here. You're trained to want to be somewhere else. You're trained to believe in and commit to and invest in a better later in a way that you continuously or can regularly destroy what's now because you're prioritizing something that doesn't exist. So that is a big illusion to kind of like put on the ground, to be able to be like, and this is my life, and this is my life. When you come into your present, and this has been my experience, and it seems to be like, I don't know if it's for everybody, but I've heard enough other practitioners kind of echo it or talk to it in a way that I'm going to say, like, it seems like it's this. But I have this field, the energetic field, and it seems like it stores stuff. And I am not an energy practitioner at the manual level, but I have worked with them. And in summer of 2017, I worked with a shaman for the first time, and I was going through, like, it's so crazy when you look back at how thinking distorts what was. Everything from the outside, if anyone was looking at me, they'd be like, oh, cool, like, that works. But on the inside, it was never quite right because I was looking for something later and running from what was and really avoiding myself not being able to experience my emotions at all. So anyhow, I get a recommendation to this woman, and I think I'm seeing her so I can lose weight and get a boyfriend. both of which I didn't need and pretty much had. So I'm standing in her living room with my eyes closed, my arms outstretched, and she and her partner are shaking rattles. And I'm like, with my eyes closed, I'm thinking like, is this really where I am now? Like, is this what it's come to? And no shit though. I woke up the next day and I was like, oh, it's real. And so that kicked off this whole exploration of the non-physical and energy work. And I can't remember, I think I started in astrology around then too. And I was just starting to validate like, wow, my little accounting master's mind, my little let me understand so I can control mind is like, it had a really hard time accepting that that was true. We're kind of taught, like at least I was growing up in a small town in Pennsylvania, that like that's crazy, that's silly, like, oh, you have your crystals, oh, your chakras, yeah, fuck yeah. Like at this point in my life, and it's really taken me some time to come out of the magical closet and claim these things, it actually makes more sense than the other grounded presentations. It actually makes more sense to validate like our whole physical experience is an illusion. There is no solidity, none. So anyhow, with the field, it does seem like, so when I've done work with her, and I've done a lot because I got a lot of shit, and I'm happy to share any of the names of the practitioners that I've worked with or people that I recommend. I got psychic friends, I got intuitive healer friends, I got like people all over the board. She did things that cleared my field manually, and like I said, I could feel something different. And I noticed as I was able to like zero in on the moment, like to train myself to come here more. And I wanted to come here because I knew that what my mind was doing wasn't real. So it happened in layers. It was like, oh shit, all the things I think aren't real. And that took me a bunch of time to see. But even with language, there are all, and I talk about this in all my presentations, so I'll kind of like speed past that a little, but you can't. And so I noticed I'd be up here saying all kinds of stuff about what is, and recognize that I can't know. And so in staying with my mind, I'm actually screwing myself over. So it created this intense desire to be present. And prior to that, I didn't even really know I wasn't. So it was like, okay, how do I come in here? And as I like came into my field, all the stuff that was there that I hadn't felt or dealt with was waiting. It was waiting. I kind of like relax into here, and it was like, and I'm very blessed with having, like I said, I spent a lot of time kind of tuning into myself, but I get visuals and I get pretty clear translations of energy, I guess. And so I'd connect with these different, I don't know, disruptions or things stored in my field and get a flash of things like I hadn't ever thought of before, but like it must have stuck. So just making space and time to give my awareness, like to relax to those emotions, to that experience, and feel it. And over time, it's kind of emptied the field. So when I talked the other night about the feel bucket, it's kind of like this. Unless you have been blessed with either like just some kind of knowing, or your parents were like hip, you probably have some shit in your field, in your bucket. And it might not be yours. It could be from the collective. We exist, like I said, in this single body. I work with sensitive people. I know sensitive people. There was a wave where they were working with male-female dynamics in the way that women have been controlled, have been controlled by the physical fear of men, or fear of the physical retaliation of men. Like, it's this program, this belief, like I wrote about the other day, this belief that says you can't do that because this will happen. But it's just an idea. And the way this experience works, it's so trippy and it's so chicken and eggish, And that when you have the belief, you have the experience, and yet like you have the experience and belief, so like which comes first? And it doesn't really matter. It more or less seems like allow yourself to transcend the fear by connecting with the underlying feeling, processing it, and then it seems like you can rise above it. Everything is energy. Your frequency determines what you acknowledge, in reference to the people don't believe in magic stones, energy healing, etc. Yeah, and I think, yes, I thank you for adding that, Ray. Yeah, it is all frequency. And it is, again, hard for the Western, or at least it was hard for my Western mind to let that be real and true. Because so much of our conditioned experience rests on that like this paper I was telling you about, where it's like, okay, you're supposed to do this, have this, If this, it's like, if you're focused on this, like, what's that other stuff? Like that stuff's not really on here. And when it is on here, it's in a way that's like, that's crazy, don't do that. And I think everybody's experience is different. And that's also something, like when we're looking at the plant and the paper and your relationship to the plant relation to the paper, the experience that you've had in life will be different, like between siblings. It will be different between like households, neighborhoods. Like there are some themes that overlap, and yet in the overlapping there can be a completely unique experience. And to allow for your experience, it really does seem like develop connection with yourself and ask how you feel. I'd also say it's really helpful to let like phone is running out of battery. Let the past rest. It doesn't, like, all that stuff, like what you have recorded about your personal history, what you have recorded about experience, you can sort through all that stuff. I tried. I was really in there up to my elbows in it, like trying to make sense and clean up. But it doesn't really matter, because it too is an illusion, and it too is relative to now. And it seems like the only practice one really needs to develop is, can you be here? Can you be present, connected to, and allowing of your personal experience? And are you confident and comfortable enough to allow yourself to act non-relative to fear? So to act non-relative to fear is to step outside of your mind. That includes, I'll do this because of this, and then this. And like, again, everybody works differently. So, I don't ever want to close off a way of functioning and say it's not like that, because it could be like that. But it does seem like, from a creative standpoint, if you are standing in the truth of being an element of the body, then it's, can you walk with the awareness of that? Which means, like, can you call the body? Like, it seems like each individual cell health and thrivingness contributes to the overall health and thrivingness of the body. So why wouldn't the body want the individual cell to thrive? And yes, there are cycles of like destruction and like there are all those things. It's all true. And yet it does seem that all fear is like essentially illusory, unless it's like in this room right now. That concludes my presentation for today. It would be really helpful if you did watch this, and if you heard that, then you did. Let me know if this level of discussion resonates, what is there for you. This is the level that like I said, I share on my other channel. This is a level that I operate on personally. These are the things that that are present to me. I try and have tried to distill this awareness into more grounded, like recognizable things. But it does seem like the conversation's really, like it's moving fast. And maybe like if the body has this in my awareness, maybe this is what's here for me to share. So I do want to stay relevant in a way that, like, it's not for me. Like it's like I want us to do this together. So if I can better meet you where you are, in format, in content topic, and whatever, like, do let me know. If it resonates for me and feels good to me, I'll give it a go. And I just finished creating an entry form for a project or a program I'm going to demo. So it's called 3 months to, it's cute, 3 months something. And I am having the whole thing be sliding scale. So I want to light up as many cells in the body as I can. And I recognize the way that I can do that is by lighting up cells that light up other cells. And I fucking love this stuff. This is what's most natural to me. This is how I breathe. This is what keeps me grounded. This is what keeps me connected to the body. And so I'm going to roll that out and offer that. I really am sincere in saying, like, let me know what works for you. I do, like to buy food and pay rent. So I may not be able to take on everything at once. But if it feels like aligned work to me, if it feels like there's something there, like I will do my best to serve you in the capacity that I can. So I'll share that at some point this week and you can pass that along. I also have the Awarenting workshop. It's also on sliding scale, and that to me is for it's a self-love workshop for parents, for them to appreciate and love the parent that they are. What I noticed in working with parents is that they're also under a lot of pressure because of these papers, and they're aware of the ways they can fuck up their kids and like all these things that are pressurizing their experience. Plus they might be working, plus they might be in the middle of the world falling apart, plus like all these other things. And so what I'd love to do is teach parents how to love themselves, so that they can then demonstrate that to their children. So self-love is something that you model, and you model it through this kind of like durability of yourself. I also have these cards I made. Woo! These divination cards. And this is a way to read the energy field, and I'm doing something that I think is unique with it and making a notebook that allows for these to be used over time rather than just like, what am I supposed to call him? I really am. I want to I was gonna throw out the hashtag normalize, but let's let that one flake off. I really want to make it okay that people grow and change, so that there's not also pressure to be like, how do I get myself to be here? It's like, no, how do I support what my planet is doing? How do I become? And that's my vision for these cards. I want to create them in a way that people can use them to support their becoming rather than try to control their experience, which you can't do. And the more you try, the less you enjoy yourself. And kind of pinch yourself off from life. And finally, I think that's it. Brandon, are you sincere in wanting to join? I would love to have you sometime. I was just about to roll off though, because my phone died. My battery is coming down, and if it dies before the video ends here, then I lose it. That happened the other day. But I really appreciate everybody coming. I do have the other channel at Intergalactic Hotline, and that one I do share this level of stuff more often. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for being along. Hey, David. Hey, sunglasses, Brandon. All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks for coming out.